All right, so let's continue with the organ system. So as human beings, we have 11 of them. And so for each system that we'll talk about, there are certain organs that are going to work together to have a certain function. And I want you to be aware, though, that one organ can be part of multiple systems. For example, the brain. The brain is part of the nervous system, but then is also considered to be part of the endocrine system. All right, and then all of our organ systems then are going to work together to form an organism. All right, so let's go through the systems. Let's start with the skeletal system. So this is composed of bone and cartilage. The big function for it is to support and to protect our vital organs. So for instance, we have the skull here. So the skull is going to protect the vital organ of the brain. Thoracic cavity here. The bones are going to protect the heart, the lungs, and the esophagus, the trachea. So all those important organs that we have. Also for support, because this has to work with our skeletal muscle and to keep them attached to things and so that we can have movement. Also a big thing is that it stores different molecules. So big one is going to be calcium. So if we have diets that are low in calcium, then bones have an excess store, and so they're going to siphon the calcium from the bones and put it into our bloodstream so that can circulate through the rest of our body. Also, we have different ions like phosphorus and zinc, which are also important for normal balance of neurons. And then big thing too for muscle attachment, and then that's going to go back to support for our body. All right, next what we have is the integument system. This is going to be the largest organ that we have is our skin. So the skin is going to be made up of the dermis and the epidermis, and then we have accessory structures like the hair, the nails, and then the glands. And this is going to be our first line of defense against different pathogens like bacteria, harmful chemical reactions, substances that we find within the environment, and also big things that site for vitamin D synthesis so that it's for normal metabolism. The skin is going to also be very important in regulating our core body temperature, where it's going to be the first sensor and that is going to detect these changes. So we have a lot of different sensory organs found within our integument. Next, we have the muscular system. So this is typically composed of skeletal muscle, and this is for body movement. Again, works with our skeletal system because muscles need to attach to bones in order for a limb to move or an area to move. This also is important with our integument system because it generates heat for the body in terms of when we have contractions, and so this helps with regulating our core body temperature. Next, we have the endocrine system, and so this is going to be composed of endocrine and exocrine glands. So an example are like the hypothalamus in the brain, the pineal gland and pituitary, also found within the brain. Then we have the thyroid, which is going to be near the trachea, the thymus, which sits on top of our heart, adrenal gland sits on top of our kidneys, our pancreas, which is going to be both an endocrine and an exocrine gland, and then also with the reproductive structures, we have testes in males and then in ovaries for females. Big thing here is that it's going to secrete hormones, and these might be initiated at different times in our life. So for instance, during puberty, this is going to be a big time where we have the reproductive hormones that are going to start circulating and give us those fun feelings that we have. And also for females, when menopause sets in, then we have an off balance of hormones, and then with pregnancy as well for females. All right, so then we have cardiovascular system. This is very interesting to a lot of people, and it's a very simple system because it's composed of the heart, the blood vessels, and the blood. And so it's going to be a continuous tube where the heart is going to act as the pump, and then the tube is going to go from a large diameter that stems off of the heart into smaller and smaller diameter for the vessels the farther you get away. And the blood is going to be the fluid that will circulate, where we'll have different ions traveling, different hormones and waste products and nutrients that will go to different parts of the body. And so a big thing too, though, is that helps to get rid of waste products, and this will work with our intestinal system as well as with our respiratory system in order to have that occur. Our nervous system is made of the brain, the spinal cord, and then we have the spinal nerves that come off of the spinal cord, but also we have a few cranial nerves that come off of the brain. And the big thing is that this is important for having different body movement, and this is going to be the first unconscious response when we have some type of movement that's going to send an impulse to our muscles, skeletal muscles, to move, and for our smooth muscles and cardiac muscle too. And this is activated due to different stimuli that we find within our environment. And so our sensory system is also part of this. So what we see, what we taste, what we feel, and ultimately this is what makes us as human beings. All right, so then the lymphatic system, this is made of lymph nodes, and lymphatic organs. So some of the lymphatic organs include the spleen, the thymus, the thoracic duct, tonsils, which some of you might have these removed, but we have 3 different sets, so you're not without a lymphatic organ. And so this will work with our cardiovascular system too, because it's going to monitor and then start the immune response once they detect different foreign molecules that are found within the blood or sometimes harboring within an organ itself. And what happens is that there is a system of checks and balances that will go through these lymphatic nodes and lymphatic organs, where it's going to filter out then what is clean blood that's not foreign to us versus what is a foreign molecule, and then what it will do is it will degrade then that foreign molecule. Respiratory system, this is composed of the nose, the throat, the larynx, the trachea, the brachii, and then into the lungs, where we have 2 of them. Biggest thing here is that it's going to be involved in gas exchange between cells of the body and with oxygen within the environment. So we expel carbon dioxide into the environment, and then when we breathe in, we're taking in oxygen so that can be distributed to the rest of the body. Digestive system here, this is composed of the mouth, the throat, esophagus, stomach, intestines, and then will come out the rectum. And the accessory organs of this tube of the digestive system includes the liver, the gallbladder, which you can't see, but it's behind on the back there, and then the pancreas. And so when we ingest food, this is going to go through just basically a long tube, and it's going to break down and absorb food stuff and drink stuff that we need for nourishment for our body. And so within the intestines, we have a lot of surface area to increase that absorption of the nutrients for the rest of the body. Also, a big thing then, whatever our body doesn't need, then we're going to eliminate a lot of waste here. Bacteria, a lot of our waste and fecal matter actually is going to be bacteria that is not needed for our body anymore. Simplest system here is the urinary system in terms of the organs involved in it. So what we have are the kidneys, the ureter, and the urinary bladder, and then finally the urethra, which expels urine. And so the urinary system will work very closely with our blood system, where it'll work with the capillaries and the arterioles and vessels, where it will filter out and different ions. So particularly sodium ions and water is what it's going to regulate. A little bit of different waste products like potassium, hydrogen ions, and urea and ammonia ions, but mostly sodium and water is what our kidney is going to filter out and detect how much we need to eliminate. So then our body can adjust if we want to concentrate or dilute our urine. All right, and then last but not least, we have the reproductive system. So very important, because in order for us to be here, this is why we are here, because of the reproductive. And so for males, there is the penis, the testicles, the vas deferens, and the epididymis. And then for females, there are the ovaries, the uterus, the fallopian tubes, and the vagina. Very important, because again, for us to have offspring and to perpetuate future generations, this is needed. A lot of the hormones won't start being activated and won't be functioning. We don't have functioning reproductive systems until we hit puberty. And so that has a lot to do then with our nervous system and endocrine system in terms of regulating when these hormones are going to be released. So as you are probably aware, very different for every individual in terms of timing during their lifetime.